Let's be honest, we've all been there. You've got this killer idea for a comedy. You are literally laughing out loud as you're writing it, and then you read it back, and it's just silent. Writing comedy can feel like some kind of dark art, right? Like you're either born funny or you're not. But what if I told you it's not magic? It's a craft. And today, we're gonna open up the toolbox.
I mean, it's a feeling every writer knows. That brilliant, hilarious idea that just fizzles out on the page. And you should know, it is not just you. Even the absolute pros will tell you making people laugh and doing it consistently is one of the toughest things to pull off in storytelling. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. Hollywood, audiences, everyone is constantly looking for great comedies. But here's the catch. As the source material points out, it's probably the most difficult form to write. So why is that? Well, you're not just telling a story. You also have to build this joke delivery machine that keeps firing for like 90 minutes straight. It's a massive challenge. Okay, but here's the big shift in thinking. What if comedy isn't some mystical art form? What if it's actually a craft? Think about it less like trying to catch lightning in a bottle and more like being an engineer. There are proven structures, proven techniques, and today we're handing you the blueprint, a real step-by-step guide to building your own comedy right from the ground up. So where do we even begin? Well, surprisingly, not with the jokes. We start with the story, because a truly great comedy is really just a great story with a whole lot of laughs layered on top. So we're going to start with this 9-step blueprint that is, and I'm not kidding, the secret DNA of almost every great movie you've ever seen, from Star Wars to Superbad. So this right here, this is our map, the 9-step story blueprint. You see, it all starts with something called the ghost, basically a wound from your hero's past. That ghost creates a problem they have to solve, and that kicks off a journey through opponents, plans, a final battle, all before they find some kind of new equilibrium. This structure, this is our foundation.
Okay, so step one, the ghost. And no, we're not talking about a literal phantom here. This is some kind of past trauma that's got your hero totally paralyzed in the present. Think about Alan in The Hangover. His ghost is that suffocating relationship he has with his family. It's made him deeply insecure, he can't stand up for himself, and that is the real starting point of his whole journey.
Now, this slide right here highlights what might be the single most critical distinction in all of storytelling, the problem versus the need. The problem is the external thing. It's obvious. Our hero is about to go bankrupt. But the need, that's the internal hidden flaw. Maybe he's incredibly arrogant and can't admit he needs help. The audience can see it plain as day, but the hero, he's completely blind to it. And that internal journey, overcoming that need, is what makes a story feel truly satisfying. All right, so we have our story blueprint. We're architects. Now, how do we actually make it funny? This is where we shift gears. Let's get into the nitty-gritty, the actual mechanics of what makes us laugh. So what is a joke really at its core? Well, according to this framework, it's all about one thing: reduction. We laugh when we see somebody who seems high status suddenly brought low. I mean, the classic example, right? A guy in a fancy suit slips on a banana peel. We feel this little flash of superiority and we laugh. But notice that key phrase, not too much. If the guy gets seriously hurt, it stops being funny. Comedy has to live on that fine line. And this brings us to the single most important rule of writing comedy. Seriously, if you remember one thing today, make it this. The audience has to instantly get who is being made to look foolish and how. Laughter is a reflex. If people have to stop and think about the joke, you've already lost. Clarity is everything. So how do we actually do this reduction thing? Well, the framework gives us 3 really powerful tools, or lenses, to use. Think of these as your go-to methods for making a character look foolish in a way that's super clear and super effective. Lens number 1 is probably the most common you'll see: reduction to animal. This is all about reminding us that, deep down, we're all just creatures with basic, messy bodily functions. Think about that infamous food poisoning scene in Bridesmaids. It's crude, yeah, it's kind of gross, but it's a perfect example of reducing these otherwise sophisticated characters to their most primal animalistic level. Okay, lens number 2 is reduction to child. This is for any character who just reacts with way, way more emotion than a situation actually calls for. The classic example is George Costanza from Seinfeld having a total meltdown over a parking spot. Here's a grown man throwing a full-on, childlike tantrum over something totally trivial, and that's where the comedy is. And finally, we've got reduction to machine, which is huge in screenwriting. This is the total opposite of the child lens. Here, a character reacts with less emotion than the situation demands. You know, their house could be on fire and they just deadpan, well, that's inconvenient. It's all about that hilarious, brilliant understatement. Okay, we've got our story blueprint. We've got our comedy tools. Now it's time to actually get our hands dirty. Let's move from all this theory to practice with some actual writing drills you can use to start generating funny scenes like today.
This is where it all clicks together. So just look at this table. Let's take a story. Makes them screw it up. So, say a hero's need is to learn to trust people. Well, of course they're going to create a plan that doesn't rely on anyone else, and that's exactly why it's going to fail. Now, here's the drill. When it all comes crashing down, how do they react? Do they have a childlike meltdown, or do they have a machine-like deadpan response? See? By connecting their flaw to the plot and then to the reaction, you're creating comedy that comes directly from who they are. Okay, that was a lot to take in, so let's just boil it all down. These are the key takeaways. The idea is you should, write on a sticky note and slap on your monitor before you start writing your next script.
So, to recap, first, start with that 9-step story blueprint. That's your foundation. Then remember that at the heart of that blueprint is your hero's internal need. That's the real engine of your story. When you get to the funny stuff, just remember that all jokes come from character reduction. Your main tools for that are the 3 lenses: animal, child, and machine. And the real magic, the secret sauce, happens when you apply those comedy lenses to the key moments in your story structure. So we'll leave you with this challenge. Go all the way back to that first step of the blueprint, the ghost. What is that one event from their past that defines your hero's flaw? Figure that out, and you haven't just found the beginning of your story. You've found the heart of your comedy. Now go write it.